Welcome to Chamber Talk, brought to you by North Orange County Chamber, where we explore the stories and insights of leaders, business owners and CEOs from various sectors who are making a difference in our community and region. Whether you're tuning in via podcast or joining us via video, we're glad to have you here. Welcome to Chamber Talk, proudly brought to you by North Orange County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Andrew Gregson, and today we have the privilege of welcoming the Honorable Fred Jung, Mayor of Fullerton, and also candidate for Orange County's 4th District Supervisor. Thanks for coming on today, Fred.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Andrew, for having me.
You're welcome. So today's a little bit special. We're actually doing a different series for candidates who are running for the various midterm positions. So I'd like to first start off, Fred, maybe ask a little bit so you can introduce yourself to our audience, share a little bit about your background, and of course what inspired you to run for Orange County Supervisor, because that's not just an everyday type of position.
Well, I am awful at talking about myself, so instead I'll pivot off your question and talk about the role of Orange County Supervisor.
Excellent.
And then I'll try and dovetail and give you the why as to the reason why I'm running. So the County of Orange is nearly about 150 years old. It mirrors very much so the age of the city of Fullerton. Includes 34 cities and is home to 3.2 million people. It's 800 square miles in size, has about a $10 billion budget, but only, and it seems odd to say only, in the context of this budget and its size, but only about $1 billion is discretionary. That means, by and large, $9 billion of the $10 billion budget are federal and state programs that act as almost pass-throughs for the County of Orange. So we are contracted or tasked with implementing these programs to our county residents by the federal government or the state. Orange County is higher in terms of median family income than Los Angeles County, San Diego County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, the entire state of California, and even the entire U.S. So we make great money and earn an incredible living here in Orange County. The problem and the concern that we have is we have also one of the highest median home prices. In fact, to purchase a home in Orange County is going to cost you about $1.5 million. Take that into context. 25 years ago plus, I purchased my home for $300,000. It was all the money I had in the world at the time. Yeah. I couldn't even conceivably think about what it would cost and take of my income, which was not much at the time, to purchase a home now worth $1.5 million. And that's not a lifestyles of the rich and famous type home.
No.
This is just an average home in Orange County is $1.5 million. So
it's roughly $7,500 or so a month.
Indeed.
Just for mortgage.
Just for mortgage. We're not even talking about real estate tax. We're not talking about homeowners insurance.
Yeah.
All this to say that we as Orange County residents and businesses contribute much more to the state and federal income, to the GDP, to the overall business and economic outlook than we actually take in. We punch as a county way above our weight, considering how small we are in size. Think about how we are in size for a moment. I'll refer back. We're only 800 square miles in size. San Bernardino County, which is next to us, is 20,000 miles in size by comparison. 20,000.
That's huge.
So the concern for all of us has to be, what does the county look like? What are we facing as we move forward? We've got some very strong headwinds that we will have to functionally deal with as a county as we're moving forward, some of which are budget related. Economically, we all forecast that there will be a downturn. Consumer confidence right now is at some of the lowest levels it's been in the last 10 years. You add on what the potential of tariffs may look like, and everybody at the federal government level, everybody at the state level currently is talking the big R word, which is recession. Recession will impact our county negatively from a fiscal standpoint, very much so. You add to that the strains on an already taxed county system based on the wildfire. The airport fires, total claims so far are almost $500 million. That's just as much as we have as a county in reserves.
Right.
So what happens if we have to pay all of that out? Because the county is right now currently, as most government agencies are, very underinsured. So if we are responsible for all of that payout, then what happens to those depleted reserves? What do we as a county do then?
Right.
So as you look at what the horizon looks like from a county level, we need not only effective leadership, you need experienced leadership that has pragmatic solutions and really does everything they can to make sure that the county maintains its economic mobility, that we are, not only progressing innovation forward, but that we value not only the rule of law, but also quality of life. So those are all the whys as to and the what's that comes with being Orange County Supervisor.
Now, you mentioned there, you said that you felt that, we're punching above our weight. Do you mind sort of like clarifying a little bit more what you meant by that?
Sure. So a lot of what you expect as a taxpayer is when you pay taxes either to the state or the federal government, that those taxes come back to you in terms of programs. And when I say that we punch above our weight, we give to Sacramento and to Washington, D.C. far more than we ask for. And we've been like that from the genesis of the county. We've always been very independent, didn't want big government looking over our shoulder. We wanted to be Orange County and sustain ourselves. That's great, but we are not taking advantage of the money that's out there. And we don't take that. We're not asking for it, then somebody else will. And, to date, a lot of that funding has gone to Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. And hasn't come here.
So I'm assuming then, hence why another reason why you want to run to be the Orange County Supervisor is because this is something you would want to, work on very hard and try and change that around then.
Absolutely. We should be getting, and making sure that we get our fair share.
Now, you also mentioned about insurance, which is a big deal, and you know a little bit more about this than maybe some, because working on city council for a long time, it's difficult for cities even to get insurance. Now we're having problems with insurance companies anyway for people just to get the homes insured. What types of things do you see could be done to change that?
Well, government has something that they can do called mandates. They have something that they can do called laws. And you have to cater, government has to, cater these things for business owners and for families. Homeowners right now are being taxed in an enormous way. They are having to get insurance for, let's say, an earthquake.
Right.
Good luck finding earthquake insurance in
Right.
California. Okay, fire, based on recent events, both the Eaton and Palisades fire. Well, good luck trying to get fire insurance.
Sure.
So we are all being taxed right now as citizens, much higher premiums than in other states. Now, why is that when we have an insurance commissioner in this state? What is happening to our capacity as a state to have any type of individual or collective buying power? And I think, some of the things that get lost in Sacramento, and again, this isn't criticism of Washington, D.C., because D.C., at least the federal government, has the power to print money. The things that get lost, I think folks are losing sight of in Sacramento, are these healthy debates that are required so you get compromise, collectively good legislation. And that is, I hear from your side that doesn't necessarily agree with my side, and together we come to a place where we're not getting 100% of what we want.
Right.
But each of us are getting a percentage that's acceptable to us. That's quality legislation. Is it everything that one side wants or nothing that the other side wants? Well, that's what we're getting right now. And some of the things that you can see that is flawed in this process that we have in this state is we are correcting things that we, as a legislator, have done. So they'll pass a bill, and then a couple of years later, they go, well, that wasn't the best thing, and then they'll correct it. Well, we could have done that during the first cycle by having a robust debate about the things that we value and hearing from another side and getting input from perhaps folks that don't have the kind of representation that these districts are offering currently in California. So, those are the risks of having a supermajority in both houses and the governor's seat is you get legislation very one way. And I think, societally, California's a lot more in the middle than they are one side or another. And I think they just want common sense. And I think we've lost sight of that a little bit.
Now, another big part of being a supervisor in Orange County is infrastructure, and I know that you've been on many different committees over your career as a local politician or elective on different transportation type committees. What types of ideas do you have regarding our infrastructure?
Well, infrastructure right now is something that the state's trying to grapple with because so much of local municipality budgets are dedicated towards salaries and pensions, rightfully so, because local government's very service-oriented. As a result, these kinds of brick-and-mortar tactile things that we need to do for our citizenry, like streets and roads, sidewalks, street lights, those are numbers that are far exceeding what we as small municipalities, medium municipalities, even large municipalities can raise. So the state's thinking about and talking about infrastructure bonds, which the state does a lot. And the unfortunate thing about any kind of bond is, one, you're passing these costs on to future generations, particularly your children, your grandchildren. But more important than that, these bonds have a tendency to whittle away at a analytic level. That there is a consultant, almost industrial complex in this state. That you have a funding source that is finite, and that's what's projected to be the cost of, let's say, operating high-speed rail for the state. And the cost escalates to such a degree, not because buying up the land or the higher cost of materials, but it also escalates because there are so many, consultants, analysis, all of these things, studies that have to be done. We are just, to some degree, in neutral and being taxed because of all of this. So, when you look at where we can go as a state to improve infrastructure, we have to go to local tax measures. And in Fullerton, in 2026, we will hopefully be able to place a specific tax measure just for infrastructure, which affords you an opportunity to have, I think you need 2/3 as your threshold. It's not 50 plus 1, it's a much higher threshold than that. It allows us to dedicate these sales tax funds, these additional funds, directly to improving our streets and roads. I'm hoping it has a sunset clause of 10 years and that the residents of Fullerton and the businesses in Fullerton can say to them, to the government at the time, because certainly I won't be around, you kept your promises. Right. Promises made, promises kept, and we're happy to re-up that for the next 10 years. But that's good government. That's the way it should be done. If indeed folks in our city want this, they value that, then they'll be willing to pay for it. And if so, then we as a government should be responsible of making sure that the promises that we made are kept, and then we have accountability to the voter.
Now, I'm assuming, because I've had the privilege of knowing you for a few years and knowing how you generally rotate, I'm assuming you would make or you'd be looking at lining iteming what the city are going to be doing for those monies, and then you'd be giving checks and balances, I would imagine. Is that what you're looking, the difference between it?
Well, absolutely. I would expect that there's a citizens committee of some sort to have oversight over this, that our city staff have a capital improvements project list citing exactly what it would cost, when the project would begin, when it would end, and give people an idea of what they can expect for their dollar. Currently, right now, we do a fairly decent job in the city of Fullerton. In fact, most of Orange County, at least the older central and northern part of Orange County, in terms of grading and improving and upgrading our main arterials. Mm-hmm. What we don't do a very good job of is the street that homeowners live on. Thing is, though, as a homeowner or a resident in the city, you may only drive on the arterial once a week, maybe 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. You drive your street, walk on it every day.
Every day, right.
So unless we're doing that to improve your quality of life, we're only shifting around deck chairs on the Titanic, more or less. So I think having a large scale, much more pragmatic approach to all of this, that's not only deliberate, but voter accountable. I think that's what we need, and hopefully we get that in 2026.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about that in another episode. So that'll be interesting. So many residents are concerned about homelessness right now, and going back to sort of like as the 4th District Orange County Supervisor, what strategies or programs would you propose to mitigate homelessness in OC while still balancing the needs of businesses and residents?
So the most recent point-in-time count for homelessness in Orange County is a little north of 7,000 individuals that are unhoused. That's up from 5,000 a few years ago. So we're not trending in the right direction.
Right.
If I can use Fullerton as an example, because I know Fullerton.
Sure.
Our point-in-time count hasn't changed, hasn't gone up, hasn't really gone down in the last 4 years. Oh. So you can applaud those efforts and say Fullerton has a shelter, they have the Hope Center, they've got homeless liaison officers. They are doing the right things to combat this. And I suppose we are. And we should be doing more. That said, you have to think about the 4 cities in North Orange County that have shelters: Buena Park, Placentia, Fullerton, and Anaheim. Mm-hmm. But the largest city in Orange County is Irvine in terms of scale size. Mm-hmm. And they don't have a shelter.
No.
Second largest is Newport Beach. It's not Anaheim, it's Newport Beach. They don't have a shelter. One of the top 10 in size, Laguna Hills, no shelter there either. Mm-mm. So it seems as though, to me, a lot of the heavy lifting to combat homelessness in Orange County is being done by North County. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're looking for a solution to this absolutely important problem we have to wrap our arms around, we have to think regionally. And we're just not doing a good job of that. Mm-mm. The 34 cities in Orange County cannot be individualistic about this, because you have then 34 governing bodies. You have 34 different city councils. They have different makeups. They have different priorities and goals, as well they should. But this problem is very nomadic. Mm-hmm. If you solve, quote unquote, homelessness in Brea, you didn't really solve it in Brea. They just went to Placentia, Fullerton, and La Habra.
Right.
If you solve it, quote unquote, Newport Beach, you didn't really solve it. They just went to Irvine, Huntington Beach, elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So if we don't think regionally as to how we go about solving these issues, we're just not going to get to where we need to be. And I think the county, what they should be doing is allocating funding that goes directly to the municipality. Mm-hmm. That the county shouldn't oversee a county-wide program. I don't know that that's effective because not one size fits every shoe.
Sure.
So if you have a community that's a coastal community and they have different values, perhaps the solution is to afford them an opportunity and give them funding to find solutions that work at a very tactile, ground level.
Right.
What the county needs to do is provide a data tracking system of some sort where all of these cities, all of these 34 municipalities, all of these various healthcare agencies, all of these different hospitals, all of these government agencies can access a database with all of the information on all these folks that are unhoused, and we can see, did this individual go from Fullerton to Irvine and still remain unhoused? How did they get there? What were the metrics? Instead, what happens is they'll leave Fullerton, take Fullerton services, leave Fullerton. They'll go to Anaheim, and we'll lose sight of them, and Anaheim starts all over again.
Right.
So having some sort of collective database, I think, would be remarkably helpful as well.
And so I'm assuming what you're suggesting there is rather than the county taking full responsibility of it, the idea is to give funding out to all the different cities for them to do that, but then the different cities to work together in order to share this data, because then you can really factor out what is working and what is not working.
Well, I think all good government is local.
Right.
I think it all starts there.
It does, yeah.
Either take these local priorities and have regions where you can work this through, North County, central parts of the county, the coastal parts, the southern parts, and have a countywide solution that makes sense to everybody, or give the money to these local municipalities so they can utilize it and fund the programs that they want that work in their community. And again, think regionally in terms of making sure that you're tracking this information so these tax dollars are not being wasted, that we indeed are not allowing for the kind of, boondoggles that seems to be impacting not only the state level, but Los Angeles County, the city of LA, in terms of what they've been trying to do for homelessness, where it's just not impacting at all. They're spending a lot of money doing a lot of things that aren't amounting to much in terms of reducing their homeless population by a considerable amount. So I think there are ways and there's metrics, data points that make sense that we can utilize to, better these programs, to make them more efficient. But I've always thought that efficiency is at its most granular level starts from the city.
And I'm assuming when you first started talking with us today, as you mentioned that obviously Orange County is not receiving what you feel is fair back in funding from federal or what have you, or state, and I'm assuming that's where some of these extra monies would come from to actually pay for certain
I certainly hope so. I'd be advocating for that, going
Right.
up to Sacramento, going to DC, and making sure that the programs that that make sense for our county
Sure.
and the residents in it are funded.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, I know you're a very a good pro-business advocate. So how would you plan to support local businesses, attract new industries to create jobs within the district?
Well, I think with all of the things that we try to do on a city level is we are always trying to promote as 34 individual cities. And I think what the county can do is act as a force multiplier. I'm talking at a county level now. Mm-hmm. And say to businesses, come to Orange County. Here's what we offer collectively. Mm-hmm. It's very hard for the city of La Habra to knock on the door of, let's say, a Top Golf or a Hilton and say, we want your hotel in the city of La Habra.
Right.
The scale is too small for some of these folks to have any idea at a corporate level what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about Orange County, that opens up a lot of doors. Mm-hmm. It certainly perks up a lot of ears. And I think from an economic development standpoint, we are always so focused on competing with one another as cities. And perhaps a more regional, collective approach is good for all of us. And the thing that I always, the example I give folks is, look at the Anaheim Resort District and the capacity of Visit Anaheim to incorporate Garden Grove, and look at what's happened to Garden Grove as a result. That they have taken some of the things that have worked in Anaheim alongside Harbor Boulevard, and now Garden Grove has hotels. They have the Great Wolf Lodge. They have attractions. They have restaurants. And they're getting now that TOT revenue that everybody likes on a government level. So these things are all happening to build commerce in the city of Garden Grove. That doesn't happen if they're not uniting and working together with the city of Anaheim.
So public health is a big concern. And, we still talk about post-pandemic, but what policies or types of advocacy would you see to improve in the healthcare, if at all, or the mental health services?
A lot of folks have issues with the American healthcare system, and I'm certain countrywide we could always do better. And in the city of, County of Orange, city of Fullerton, I'm sure there are pockets of our community that would say we should be doing better, and we probably should. But we live in a country, and we are fortunate enough where healthcare is readily available, it's advanced, it's innovative. We have some of the best quality doctors and nurses that any society, advanced or otherwise, has. The thing that I always, I wonder about, and I'm concerned about, is mental health care. I realize the medicinal part, the clinical things. You break an arm, you go to St. Jude or you go to Kaiser, you get your arm mended. You have cancer, though there's treatment available to you. What happens if you are having a mental breakdown? How do we serve or better serve the folks that are in need that way? And how do we do it on a level that is slightly different than what we would consider medicinal care, as in, okay, you have somebody in grade school having a breakdown. How do we treat that child? How do we help him or her cope? How do we give support to him or her and to his or her family? How do we go about doing those things? What are we doing at a collegiate level? What are we doing at a teenage level? What are we doing for adults? What are we doing for the elderly? Mental health care is, I think, something that we often ignore. I think there are stigmas to it that are unjust and unfair. We just label it all under the roof of crazy. And I think that's terribly unfortunate, because how we perceive society to be is at times how we are. And if we're not advocating for and fighting for the most vulnerable among us, who are we as a society, and what is that saying about us?
So that sort of opens right now in Orange County. Obviously, we have, was it Opticare? What are your feelings on the way that's going at the moment?
Well, you don't know what you don't know, so we'll find out how it goes. I hope it's better than our Be Well experiment, which was clunky and was not well in terms of what our expectations were. And again, perhaps it's just us, and the expectations were too high for the service that ultimately were provided. But those that went through that system would tell you unequivocally that it should have been better, could have been better, and there were many, many flaws. Sometimes we're so in a rush societally to find a solution that the solution we find wasn't good at all.
Right.
And having a more deliberate approach to some things in the long term benefits us all as a society.
How would you ensure that the taxpayer dollars are being used effectively and efficiently within the county's budget?
That's a good question, too. Everything should be based on accountability. You don't have scenarios like you have in Anaheim with Harry Sadu, or at the county level with Andrew Doe, or even at the LA County level for many, many years, LA city level for many, many years. You don't have those kinds of elected official abuse when there's accountability. There has to be these methods of check and balance. That doesn't mean that everybody has somebody over their shoulder looking at the work that they do.
Sure.
But you should be able to prove, if you've received a grant from a federal government, state or county, what you did with that money. And it shouldn't be very hard. That's not asking much to say, well, we gave you this amount. What did we get in return? What did you do for that amount?
Right.
These are very specifically elementary things that are done in the private sector all the time. It just so happens that in terms of government and the public sector, oftentimes we just seem to not pay attention. The numbers are so large in scale. And I'll give you an example because, as you referenced before, I sit on so many of these regional committees. There's committees I sit on where we approve $400 million contracts. And somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds, and everybody votes. Now, there's homework we could have all done and taken a look at that. But doesn't that require some level of discussion?
Sure.
It's $400 million.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
That's more than most businesses generate in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And we should be very deliberate in how we go about funding these kinds of things. That's not to say that money isn't necessary, but we should know where that money goes, who it went to, and what it went for.
I like that way of thinking. That's a good one, and that sort of leads into another one with you sort of touched on it with the cost of living rising here in Orange County. How do you think we could get a better work balance for the county or budget without overburdening residents and businesses with taxes and fees and things?
Well, I'm a big fan of allowing the public to manage their money and not government. So the state has for many years now advocated for housing. And I don't know that there's a single person that's a parent my age, and I'm 50 plus at this point in my life, that doesn't understand that housing affordability is a very important concern. That said, you can build all the housing you want and mandate all of these things that you think are best. And how are you going to get the private sector to build it? I'll offer this as an example. If you have parcel XYZ on the corner of Commonwealth and Beach Boulevard, and it's been owned for decades by a family who owes nothing on it, is completely cash positive, likes the basic amount of rental income that it gets, and you as a city or a state are asking for them to build housing. Well, they may just wait and not do anything. So how do you incentivize that? Well, to the state, their solution is, well, we're going to offer all of these various bonuses and take away all kinds of regulations, so we fast track, whatever that means, at the state level, these projects to be built because time is money. True, it is. But without a developer that wants to build it, without a property owner that wants to sell it, that development just doesn't happen.
Right.
So these kinds of marriages require a large-scale incentive that's different than, well, if you do this, then build for X amount of affordability, we'll let you go higher in scale, or we'll let you have less parking in scale. All of that is going to drift out into these neighborhoods. So if you have and meet that, have that unique nexus where that marriage is made, and you have a 140-unit apartment building that comes with 20% affordability, which is amazing, and they have next to no parking, well, where are these folks going to park? Well, you can say that they're going to ride their bikes to work, but that's not realistic. You could say they're going to walk where? You can say that they're going to use mass transit. That's not realistic either. By and large, all of them are gonna drive. That's just what we as Californians do, particularly in Orange County. So these cars are parked where? Well, they'll overflow into the neighborhood streets. Now, if you live on an adjacent or parallel neighborhood, that overflow is going to impact you. So how does that improve your quality of life?
It doesn't.
And the state doesn't think about these things. They just think we are all LA and San Francisco, that we have access to mass transit that we can utilize. That's just not the case. You know, this is Orange County. It's not LA. We're not San Francisco. And you need to stop mandating that we behave like them, because we're not. And that's the value of why people want to live in Orange County. You know, again, 800 square miles, 3.2 million residents. And I think we are already dense as it is, judging by our freeway traffic, which, by the way, we do better on freeways than any other county. Yet we still can't alleviate the traffic flow that we want to make commuting for our residents and our businesses, you know, comfortable. We're still not there yet. We're still doing constant improvements, as we should. But we are far better than LA. You know, try to go 10 miles in LA. How long that takes you.
Yeah, at least. So circling back on that, because it came up with an interesting point there. Earlier, you'd mentioned that at times, often we rush into doing things thinking we're going to fix it, which sort of is what you're talking about there is, you know, local... We're being told that we have to do something by folks who really don't understand what's going on. Now, as an Orange County supervisor, obviously I'm assuming you'd have to rally around and get your other supervisors behind you too, but are those the types of fights you also want to take to these powers of B that want to try and regulate us like that?
Well, I think, you know, if you're going to keep the barbarians at the gate, you need a gate first, and it's not a one-man gate. You're going to require everybody to kind of believe what you believe in, at least a majority anyhow. So I hope that, you know, I am like-minded in the majority of our Orange County residents, that housing affordability is important, but we have to develop in a pragmatic and deliberate manner that not only we are not, you know, additionally taxing our limited public safety and infrastructure budgets, but also that we can provide safe, clean, affordable water to these residents, that we can provide electricity to these residents, that we can do the structurally important things that a community needs to be a community. And I think we have to think about that before we are saying housing. Yeah. Housing's important.
Yeah.
But we should, as adults, be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, be able to do both things. And I don't see much conversation in Sacramento talking about infrastructure, talking about electricity use, talking about water use. They're always just talking about housing. But we can't do both because it's not sustainable unless we do both.
No.
And I think that's where, you know, we really need to take the fight to Sacramento. It's to say, hold on a second. We like your policy, but here's a better way to think about it. Here's a different approach. This wheel isn't working. Let's instead of adding spokes to it, let's just crack the wheel and try something new. And I think what shouldn't get lost in all of that is the business commerce, the economic development, and the absolute importance of innovation in Orange County. If we're trying to turn every city into a bedroom community, that innovation, that commerce, that business development is going to disappear in the long term. So we have to be very mindful about, again, development and how we go about doing that, because development's just not housing.
What's your stance? You mentioned a moment ago. So what is your stance on public safety funding, and how can you support law enforcement while also ensuring accountability and, of course, you know, the common trust that goes with it all?
Well, Orange County operates with the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's Department received a pay increase of 8% over 3 years. They received a 3-year contract in 2023. So in 2026, either new contract will have been negotiated or One will need to be. Usually, when you have something on the size of a county level, they are the tail that wags the dog. That their compensation, by virtue of their size, is usually the highest. That holds true for Orange County Fire Authority, that they are the benchmark for fire safety in terms of salary and compensation. That doesn't hold true for Orange County Sheriff's Department. They are actually, I don't even think they're in the top 5 in terms of pay. Yet they are tasked with enforcing much of our local jail system, our local judicial system, excuse me. Most of our airports and harbors and all these other things that are county owned and county on county property or county land. If you're not compensating for these resources, the quality of public safety is at your citizens and your business and your residents' detriment. The thing I always point to, and I don't mean to bemoan the city of Ontario, Ontario's police department has in their contract they are the highest paid.
Wow.
It's actually embedded into their contract. And as a result, Ontario's police department was offering $50,000 bonuses to people from other agencies to laterally move into Ontario's police department. Now, I don't know what the crime level is in the city of Ontario. I know that they have an airport, but I suppose it's very fortunate that they have that. So how does that impact Orange County? Well, you're losing police officers to the city of Ontario. You're losing them to Riverside cities, San Bernardino cities that are not built out yet, that are getting there, that have large-scale warehousing and logistic capacity to get some of this point-of-sale revenue that everybody so wants. They have the land for it. We talked about it. Orange County, 800 square miles. San Bernardino, 20,000. So they have all of the land to resource out all of this. So they are just getting our best sometimes in terms of public safety officers. So we have to do a better job in Orange County rallying around what our county residents value. And they have said time and time again that public safety is a core value. Law and order is a core value of this county. And we should show that. And not only how we prioritize our budget, but how we vocalize that and reaffirm that to our citizenry.
Now, there's been a lot of different bits out the news right now, and obviously some of it's quite negative towards certain departments. But how would you ensure transparency within government to keep residents informed and engaged in decision making?
Well, government is supposed to, and I say supposed to because it's not always, do things with in the public eye, that the scrutiny and oversight that's demanded by the public is given at will. The problem with any type of government is it's only as transparent as you want it to be. And I don't mean you, the elected official. I mean you, the resident. So if you turn your back and don't ever read a check register that's published, well, you're not going to know what the county or the agency or the city is spending their money, your money on. And no one should expect that. What you should expect is, I don't expect, let me expand on that. I don't expect that a parent that is busy with not only their career, but picking up their children, taking them to soccer or some sports after school, coming back home, having to worry about dinner, cooking it, feeding everyone, going to sleep and doing it all over again. I don't have any reasonable expectation that they would look through the check register. That said, there are folks that do that. And they have, time and time again, been kind of the canary in the coal mine, the whistleblowers that say, hey, something's amiss here. We may want to look. And that's the power of government at that point, to rally around that person or that individual or that advocacy group and say, is there something wrong here? And then utilize the resources that government has to take a look, a deeper dive, to get the information, utilize subpoena power, and see if there's transparency there, if it was done within the framework of the law, if everything was done as it should be done. That's where the oversight, I think, is necessary. But in terms of bettering transparency, what elected officials can do is always be accessible to their community, and their community has to have a willingness to have dialogue. And a lot of that we're not seeing. We find ourselves trapped willfully in these silos where we only want to be around the folks that agree with us. And if you don't agree with us, then you're not with us. And I think that's just not the case. I think we have to do a much better job of, as a society, of understanding one another, getting to commonalities, understanding perspectives, and that it's healthy to be different and to think differently. That lends to the diversity of Orange County, and that diversity is what made our county so awesome.
Where can people find out more about you and your campaign and anything like that? Is there a website? Where could people do to find that?
That's a great question. So I give out my personal cell phone number, which I have with me usually. If I don't answer the phone, I certainly call back. If you leave a message, you have to leave a message, though. Doesn't make sense if you call me and don't leave a message. So that number is 714-488-8888. Hard to forget that number. Again, 714-488-8888. As a society, we are always looking for silver bullets, the solution that'll fix everything. And we oftentimes place a lot of faith and hope in generational stars, albeit sports, in entertainment somewhere, in academia, in politics as well. And if you look at society as kind of an L chart, and on the one side you have trust, and on the other side you have performance. Everybody's looking for the person that is max trust, max performance. Mm-hmm. But that is terribly unrealistic. Mm-hmm. How many of those do we have? So then, okay, we want the maximum amount of performance, but you're sacrificing by having the minimal amount of trust. Well, that's not somebody you want on your team either. Mm-mm. Because while that individual may be a star, it's a star you can't count on. You're going to constantly lose sleep over. You will always be looking to see whether or not that individual has stabbed you in the back in one form or another. Okay, so then let's look at maximum amount of trust, but no performance. Well, that's not bad. At least you can count on them to be there for you, but you're not going to get a lot out of them.
No.
So where do we go? Well, I think that what you're looking for ultimately is a healthy balance. That I think all good in society is when we're in balance. And I don't mean this on a religious level or a thesis, but I think if we're in balance, not only politically, if we're in balance financially, if we're in balance familially, all of these things tend to work themselves out because that balance provides us an opportunity to do something that we just don't do these days often enough, which is dialogue. It gives us an opportunity to get to know one another. I sit here and take my time to do this podcast with you because it gives me an opportunity to dialogue with you. And as a result, perhaps to those that are listening, that they get to know me on a level that perhaps they wouldn't in a 5-minute introductory conversation where there's a handshake and a goodbye involved. And I think that's where we get better, not only from a governance perspective, but more importantly from a human one.
That's exactly why we started this podcast, Fred.
I'm sure you did.
That's exactly what it was. But as you know, we always reach a moment in an episode where we allow the guests to have an open mic time to share whatever they want their final thoughts to be. And I wanted to still give you that opportunity in case there's something you'd like to share or we missed today.
We didn't miss a lot, and hopefully we've touched on a lot of reasons why at a county level, those that are in charge and who you have faith and vote for, why that's important, the kind of things that they are in charge of, the things that they can help alleviate the issues and the systemic things that we are looking to solve. I think Orange County really, politicians say this all the time, so I certainly don't want to be the Mr. All-the-Time guy. But I think society in general, Orange County in particular, its best days are always going to be ahead. I am tremendously grateful for tradition and history and a student of it, but I don't define my life, nor do I define the future of this county based on history. I think we have to acknowledge it, understand it, appreciate it, honor it, but we have to always move forward. The things I tell my children more often than not is I don't look in the rearview mirror because we're not going there. And as a county, I think we have our brightest days ahead, but it's going to require, especially when we're asking folks to join us in belt tightening, that we elect individuals that are proven leaders, that have shown a capacity to work in collaboration with those around them, that have served in regional capacities, that where once they get into a county office, the office will not, it won't define them, that the office won't be too big, like the moment's not too big for them, that they can handle the responsibility and the burden that comes with being an elected official for 3.2 million residents in this county, and the businesses that all count on us to govern on their behalf. So I think this is an important moment in our county. I think it's an important moment in our country. And I have great faith that we'll be just fine.
Well, thank you. That was a very nice ending, that, Fred. Thank you so very much for both your time that you spent with us today and, of course, for your service to our community, because you do serve. So we really do appreciate that. Listeners, thank you again for listening, and viewers, thank you for tuning in. To hear other more Chamber Talk episodes, visit nocchamber.com and select Listen to Chamber Talk at the front of the page. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making a difference.